Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. There were fewer firefighters at the morning briefing than usual that Friday, and I'm sure many of them had started their weekend the night before on Austin's famous 6th Street. I'd always wondered about the wisdom of scheduling mandatory safety updates at 7 a.m. on Fridays, especially since most of the guys worked overtime shifts and probably needed the sleep. Why not schedule basic equipment maintenance for 7 a.m. instead? Those tasks were routine and the crew showed up regardless of their Thursday night activities. But that would be too logical. In the real world I live in, those in power seem to pride themselves on not being too logical. Doesn't matter if it's city politics, big corporations, or the Austin Fire Department. Once someone becomes the decision maker, they seem to leave their common sense at the door. Like many people, I used to be one of those guys who started his weekend on Thursday night. I was the king of parties during my college days at UT, had decent grades but never put much effort into my studies. I learned what I needed to but didn't feel like I had to impress anyone with my GPA. Yes, I later realized that some fire department recruiters were paying attention to character and physical fitness more than academic achievements, but oh well. I always proved to my supervisors that I was more than qualified for the actual job. Then I started working as a firefighter, got promoted to engineer, then lieutenant, and finally made captain. I've been a fire captain at Station 12 in downtown Austin for the last 3 years, made good money, had a solid schedule working one of the busiest stations in the city, and life was good. My wife Sarah was a partner at Henderson Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm, who took a few years off while our kids were babies and returned to work when they both started school. My son Tyler is 9 years old and my daughter Emma is 7 years old. My 10 a.m. shift rotation was with probationary firefighters fresh out of the academy, and this was my favorite assignment. At 22 or 23, most of these kids were like sponges, ready to absorb everything about emergency response, fire suppression, and rescue operations. Additionally, there were several lateral transfers in the rotation who came from different backgrounds. Most departments required basic emergency medicine as a prerequisite for new hires. I really enjoyed instilling fundamental concepts in guys who came from construction, military backgrounds, or even college graduates who heard someone complaining about having to study emergency protocols. All I need to know is how to point the hose at the fire. I heard one of my newer firefighters say at the beginning of his probationary period, "Hell, you can't be any kind of first responder today if you don't understand basic emergency medicine, hazmat protocols, and technical rescue." I replied with a grin. Fire suppression is maybe 30% of what we do now. My evening shift was also with experienced firefighters, but since it started at 6 p.m., the full-timers showed up ready to work, although most of them looked tired from their day jobs or family obligations. For this shift, they were the best of the best intellectually and physically, so even when exhausted, most of them were probably functioning better mentally than most of the general population. It was a great challenge to work with these professionals, especially because I was one of those eager young recruits about 12 years ago. There were never any firefighters coming to the station for extra training on Friday afternoons, so as usual, I went home around 3 o'clock. The kids showed up at about 3:30, and after a few minutes of laughing and goofing around, we started making dinner on Friday night. This was our daily routine, and we enjoyed each other's company while preparing for Sarah's arrival at about 5:30. We would usually cook a pretty big dinner, and the 4 of us would celebrate the week as a family before the crazy weekend began. Sarah walked in around her usual time. The kids both squealed and ran up to hug her. I stood behind, watching and smiling, waiting for my turn. She was wearing a dark navy business suit. Nothing fancy, but I stopped breathing for a second when I first saw her. Didn't matter what she was wearing. She always gave me that reaction. She was simply stunningly beautiful, at least to me. After she kissed and hugged the kids, she came to me and we kissed passionately as we always did after any separation. "Please, you two get a room," said Tyler, who always looked visibly uncomfortable whenever Sarah and I got physically intimate in any way. Ah, the innocence of a 9-year-old. Sarah was the same age as me, 35, beautiful, and smart. She had long blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and despite having given birth to 2 children, her figure was probably still more than beautiful. She went to the gym regularly and rode her bike on the town lake trail 20 to 30 miles a week. I was an incredibly lucky man. And then the world came crashing down on me. Since it was the weekend, the kids had to go to bed before 10 o'clock. After they went to bed, Sarah and I lounged on the couch for a while. After a few minutes, we were both getting intimate and had to stop and move into the bedroom so we could at least close the door. An hour later, we were cuddled together, breathing heavily, both of us content. God, how I love this woman, I thought to myself, and how I love being with her. Michael, are you still awake? Sarah asked. I was cuddled behind Sarah, and she could feel my steady breathing indicating that I was either asleep or not far away. I perked up a little when she spoke. I'm awake, babe. What do you need? I want to ask you for maybe the greatest show of love you could ever give me, she replied softly. Now I was intrigued and woke up completely. You know how depressed Rebecca has been about not being able to have children with Brandon, especially since he's the last man in his family line, right? She began. Do you want to talk about this now? I asked, puzzled. Rebecca is Sarah's little sister, 3 years younger to be exact. She'd been told that unless it was a miracle, she would not have children. Her husband Brandon, an electrical engineer I didn't really like, had some European heritage and thought he needed to have male offspring to continue what he considered his important family legacy. Rebecca just went to work teaching art at Zilker Elementary, came home, and moped around the house. Sarah offered to help with counseling, but Rebecca didn't agree to it. It was getting really bad. Well, we think we found the answer to her depression and the end of Brandon's family legacy. Sarah continued. I'm going to carry the baby for them. At that moment, I sat up. I'm pretty sure my mouth was open. Looks like we actually discussed this? Wait, what? You know she can't practically produce viable eggs and probably wouldn't be able to carry to term even if she could produce eggs. But I can produce eggs and I have 2 children to prove that I can carry full term. I love my sister very much, Michael, and for her sake, I could carry another child. It will be their child, hers and Brandon's, but I'm carrying it for them. That's actually really generous of you, I said, still processing this information. There are excellent fertility clinics here in Austin. Dr. Martinez at the Reproductive Center downtown has a great reputation. We could look into artificial insemination, and that means no intimacy, at least no risky intimacy, until I'm confirmed pregnant, she interrupted. I'll have to stop taking birth control until then, and we can't risk you becoming a father instead of Brandon. It could take a few weeks, maybe a few months. Stop right there, I interrupted. What are you talking about? The answer hit me like a brick to the head. As the realization sank in, Sarah lowered her eyes. You mean have intimacy with Brandon? What are you talking about? It's a way to connect us all, Sarah explained. Rebecca and I don't want it to be clinical. We want it to be about love. Rebecca will be in the room with us, and I'm sure Brandon is not against this decision at all. He agreed with this. I asked, my voice getting louder. Well, he agreed with us, but it was a decision we all made, Sarah replied. It was a decision you all made? No one asked my opinion. I blurted out. How can this be about love for me? I was already standing next to the bed at this time. In fact, I was pacing back and forth. I might agree with you carrying a child for them, but I don't agree with you having intimacy with Brandon, even if Rebecca is in the room. That won't happen. I don't care if it makes Rebecca happy or if Brandon's line continues. It won't happen. Sarah looked at me like I was a petulant child, slowly shaking her head from side to side. It's not something that love can't overcome, honey. Once you get over your initial jealousy, we can go back to our relationship. Nothing has to change. It will be just for conception, and I know you love Rebecca and Brandon, and they will be forever happy and grateful. My mom and dad are so excited they can barely contain themselves. Have you discussed this with your parents yet? Everyone seems to agree except for you. Am I to understand? It won't be like this, Michael. Once I get pregnant, it will be just you and me. You're the only one I love. Don't make it more than it is. You always trust me when we disagree on big issues. You always let me make the final decision, and haven't things worked out well for us? It's a lot more than letting you buy a brown sofa for the living room or choosing to go to San Antonio instead of Houston for vacation, I said. For some reason, you think my opinion was unnecessary, but that won't happen if you expect to stay married. Think about it a little more, and I am sure you will accept my way of thinking. Next week is my most fertile time. I was stunned, to say the least. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep, so I turned on the light, got dressed, and left the house without saying a word. My favorite watering hole, the Iron Cactus on 6th Street, stayed open until 2 a.m., and instead of taking a seat at the bar as usual, I ordered a double Jameson and took it back to a table at the back of the bar. I downed my first glass in about 10 minutes, looked into the eyes of Linda the bartender, and raised my glass again. Instead of the waitress bringing me my drink, Linda served me herself, asking if I was okay. Linda and Frank Thompson had owned the Iron Cactus Bar and Grill for about 15 years, and with all that experience, Linda could probably be called a certified psychologist. She had known me for about 8 years, and all she had to do was look at my face to know something was wrong. Her question wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement of fact, and she expected a straight answer from me. I couldn't lie to Linda and gave it all up in the next few minutes. She looked at me carefully and smiled tiredly. She looked at Frank, who had replaced her at the counter, and raised a finger. Frank came over with a cup of coffee for Linda, nodded at me, and walked quietly back to the bar. You realize you've got a big mess here, Michael, she said. Ever since I've known you two, you've always given Sarah her way. She believes that it is her right to make the final decision. If you don't put your foot down, she'll decide she can do what she wants, and you'll give her tacit approval as usual. She'll have intimate relations with that guy until she gets pregnant. Then you'll have to watch her carry the baby for the next 9 months. Then she'll probably just repeat the process in the future since you already agreed once, and perhaps in the future. Oh damn, I whispered. Yeah, in the very near future, you will have to make difficult choices, so you need to think carefully about everything. Right before last call, I had one more drink and then went home. I could probably drink half a bottle and stay sober due to my bad mood. When I returned home, the house was dark. I didn't bother going upstairs to our bedroom. I grabbed a blanket from the closet and crashed in my recliner. The next morning, I heard Sarah and the kids laughing in the kitchen. I staggered into the room, still wearing my clothes from last night, and made my way to the coffee pot. Good morning, sunshine, Sarah said to me as I walked past. Did Mr. Jameson make things better last night? Are you ready to start your day and become everyone's hero? She knew me so well enough to know that I would drink when I had to solve a problem. Unsurprisingly, she decided that the matter was probably settled. We didn't talk about Sarah's proposal at all on Saturday, but there was a certain tension in the air. While we were eating dinner on Saturday night, Sarah casually reminded me that we were invited to her parents' house for Sunday dinner the next day. Ha! I don't remember you telling me that before, I said. We left for her parents a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon and arrived at about 4 o'clock. As we pulled up in front of Sarah's parents' house in Westlake Hills, I noticed cars belonging to Brandon and Rebecca, and Sarah's 2 aunts and uncles. I glanced sideways at Sarah, and she smiled back at me like someone who already had the answers to the test she was about to take. The kids ran off to play in the backyard, and we adults gathered in the living room. Rebecca walked slowly towards me, touched my shoulder, and looked deep into my eyes. I shook my head slowly, then lowered my eyes. She looked like she was about to cry until she looked at Sarah, who was nodding and smiling. I started to feel uncomfortable. There was a refrigerator stocked with Shiner Bock in the kitchen and a couple of bottles of liquor on the counter. I grabbed a bottle of Tito's vodka, made right here in Austin, threw some ice into a glass, and poured myself the equivalent of 2 shots. I felt that my life was about to get really interesting. I shouldn't have been surprised that my mother-in-law started all this. I was married to her daughter for 13 years, and she still had issues with me. I wasn't who my in-laws wanted Sarah to marry, and they made that clear on multiple occasions. I can't believe you're so selfish as to deny Rebecca and Brandon the chance to have their own child. What kind of husband are you? Lorraine practically screamed at me so they were going to try to gang up on me. I didn't expect this to happen. I'm not being selfish, Lorraine. I agreed that Rebecca and Brandon could use Sarah as a surrogate, but there's no reason why it can't be done through artificial insemination. That's a perfectly healthy and effective way to handle this. I don't see any point in doing anything else. But this is such a clinical approach and is unlikely to be the way our children were conceived, with love. We want Rebecca and Brandon's baby to be conceived in love, Sarah replied. We want it to be a loving experience. We? Who are we? I asked. I was never consulted about this. You told me about it, but I don't agree with it. I will never agree to this. He doesn't have to make love to me for me to have a child with them. It's about conceiving a child in love, not about Brandon and me having that kind of love for each other. Sarah chimed in. Rebecca will be in the room with us, dear. So he's excited about this, isn't he? I asked as the light bulb went off in my head. Brandon grinned at me. Everyone else looked at him. If she's going to carry our child, shouldn't she at least have a little fun with it? Rebecca was crying. Totally wrong answer, Brandon, I shouted. So what is it, Sarah? Brandon grinned at me again, nodding his head. Just for the thrill, old man? He chuckled. So you get to enjoy my beautiful wife, Rebecca gets the baby, and I get to be the fool? You can't be serious. None of you can be serious about this. This is wrong. I love you, Michael, and only you, Sarah insisted. After I get pregnant, it will be just you and me again, forever. I finished off the rest of the vodka in my glass and stood up. Rebecca and her husband can take you home. I suddenly don't want to eat, I said, heading towards the door. The first few days of the week were more than frosty at home. We both talked to the kids, but neither of us said more than a few sentences to the other. Finally, on Wednesday, after we had eaten and washed the dishes and the kids had gone to their rooms to do their own thing, Sarah spoke. Michael, you know I would never do anything that could harm us, our family. I know deep down that this is the right thing to do, and I know that once you overcome your jealousy and fear, you will see it too. And if we don't do this now, in a few years you will come to me with great regret for ruining everything for Rebecca and Brandon. I'm 35. I only have a small window left to safely carry a child and maybe get my body back after that. I love my sister and brother-in-law, but I'm not going to carry a child for them in my 40s. Then do it at the clinic like everyone else. Sarah, love is so much more than just intimate relations between you, Rebecca, and Brandon, I replied. Nothing inappropriate will happen, Sarah said. Michael, we've been married for 13 years. You have to trust me on this. Please. I can't do this, Sarah. I will not share you with anyone, not even with family. If you insist on going through with this, we won't exist anymore. I won't be a part of it. Thursday night after dinner, the four of us sat in our usual seats in the living room and watched TV. My designated spot was my recliner. The children and Sarah were sitting on the sofa. Sarah stood up, walked over to me, and very carefully climbed into the recliner with me, actually laying halfway on top of me while I moved back a little to make room for her. 5 minutes later, she was whispering gently in my ear, and her hand stroking my leg became a little adventurous. She placed her lips on mine, and then we shared a passionate kiss. God, could you two get a room? Tyler said with real disgust on his face. Sarah and I looked at each other, then stood up and walked up the stairs to our room. This was not uncommon for us. We were both confident that Tyler knew what was going on. I'm not sure Emma knew or understood. However, we tried to remain silent. Neither of us said a word as we got undressed and became intimate. Later, we got dressed and went downstairs to continue watching TV. Tyler looked at us in surprise as we descended. The game plan for the next week, according to Sarah, was for her to go straight from work to Brandon and Rebecca's on Friday night and stay there until the following Sunday. On Sunday evening, we had a family reunion planned. Although I was low-key hoping she would call it off, I made plans with the kids for both weekends. I wanted to spend as much happy time with my kids as possible before I changed their lives forever. On our first weekend, we visited the Austin Zoo and spent time at Zilker Park. All the kids knew about Sarah not being with us was that she was helping Aunt Rebecca and Uncle Brandon with a big project at their house. The second weekend, we visited the San Antonio Zoo and the River Walk, among other things. I used the same excuse that Sarah wasn't with us. By the end of 9 days, I looked terrible. I hardly slept at all. We were at home, about 20 minutes north of central Austin, when Sarah pulled into the driveway. The kids ran out of the house to greet her, happily chatting about our wonderful weekend. After she left her bag by the stairs, Sarah came into the living room to greet me. Since I didn't greet her as usual, I didn't put the chair down, I didn't get up, and I didn't kiss her. She stood at the foot of the chair for about 5 seconds, looking at me. My inaction did not go unnoticed by her. "So this is how it will be?" she asked. "Are you really going to play the injured party?" "Sarah," I snapped. "Against my expressed wishes, the three of you went on a 9-day intimate festival to get you pregnant with his child while I looked after our children and pretended everything was fine. This is not love as I understand it. How many times have you been intimate with him? How many times have you given a damn about me and the kids? I wasn't put here to be anyone's punching bag, doormat, or fool. Don't you dare talk to me about love, because if you really loved me, you wouldn't have spent 9 days with Brandon and Rebecca. It has nothing to do with love, and you know it. You wanted it, you got it. Just don't expect me to sit idly by because of this nonsense. You're wrong about this, Sarah. You're afraid of losing me, but this won't happen, Michael." Sarah was crying. "You're wrong. This has already happened. You chose him over me this week, and you will choose him over me next month if you are not pregnant. What happens if you have a girl? Have you already made contingencies? Are you planning to do this again to give him a boy?" Apparently, I hit the nail on the head because Sarah flushed red and began scanning the carpet with her eyes. "Damn it, how could you do this to us? To me, our family?" Sarah took a few steps back as I scolded her. I had never said anything like that to her before, and I could see the fear and understanding on her face. This problem wasn't going to go away with her pouting face. "So you're trying to turn the kids against me by being a fun parent?" Sarah asked, trying to change the conversation a little. I shrugged. Sarah's face changed from sadness to anger. She'd been intimate with another man for 9 days and had the courage to be mad at me. Will miracles never stop? My response to Sarah came the next day when she was served divorce papers at work. When I got home, she was already there, and the manila envelope was sitting on the counter when I walked in the door. The kids greeted me with their usual enthusiasm for about 15 minutes and then left. Sarah watched me the entire time I was busy with the kids, keeping her distance but keeping a close watch nonetheless. "Couldn't wait to get served before I got home?" she finally asked with humble sadness in her voice. Since I had very little dealings with the lawyer, it was not my first priority for them to file the motion early. This was the first chance they had to serve the papers. "That won't happen, Michael. There will be no divorce. I told you I love you and only you. I will not allow you to destroy us, our family, because of your jealousy and selfish insecurities. You'll thank me someday," she said. I exhaled deeply. Jealousy and selfish insecurities. God, I love these terms. I believe the best defense is a good offense. At dinner, I explained to the children what was happening. I told them that Sarah and I would be separating, that I would be gone by the weekend, but they could still see me whenever they wanted. I think all four of us cried at one point or another. The most poignant moment came when Tyler asked why I was divorcing Sarah. He's pretty insightful for a 9-year-old, so I figured I'd give him a sanitized version of the truth. "We can't be married anymore because Mom broke Dad's heart," I said simply. Tyler simply nodded. "But Mom won't allow a divorce," Sarah intervened. "Very soon we will all be a family again." She gave me a smug and confident look. I curled my mouth and gave her an annoyed look. After dinner, I took 2 large suitcases out of the closet and loaded them with clothes for work and other things I thought I would need. Sarah looked at me from the doorway with a look that, at best, expressed irritation. "We'll still be here when you get over your madness," Sarah said as I grabbed the keys and headed to the car. I kissed both children and told them I loved them. I told them that they would still see me often since I would be there for them. I moved into a small apartment about 15 minutes from our house near downtown and continued doing normal dad things like coaching Tyler's little league team and taking Emma to dance lessons. Because Sarah fought the divorce so hard, it took almost a year to get it done. Brandon's efforts didn't make it in the first month, so Sarah went for round 2 a month later. Even though I didn't have room in the apartment for the 3 of us, the kids and I did the best we could for 2 more weekends, treating the time like it was some kind of giant camping trip. When I brought the kids home on Sunday afternoon, Sarah was still not home, so we hung out for a while as usual. When she finally appeared, we just looked at each other. Well, actually, I stared at her, and she just looked at me like a disappointed parent looks at a failing child. Sarah's pregnancy began to show in her 3rd month. The little bump in the middle of her body brought back memories of better times. They quickly disappeared as anger grew within me that I was not the father of this child. At 6 months, Sarah was quite large, the same as she had been when she carried both of our children. I have to admit, I always thought she looked incredibly beautiful when pregnant, and this time was no exception, despite the circumstances. One day, I brought Tyler home from baseball practice, and Sarah invited me to dinner. Having no other plans, I agreed. After eating, the kids left, but Sarah brought coffee and apple pie, so I sat around for a while. Before I knew it, we were in what used to be our bedroom, and things became intimate between us. As we came to our senses and were breathing heavily, she looked at me and said, "Damn, Michael, that was good. I missed that. Are you sure about this divorce? Don't you still love me?" "I assume I will always love you, Sarah. That's the problem. I still love you. But apparently you don't love me enough." "That's not true, Michael. Come back home. Let's be a family again," she said. "What makes you think I would let you have intimate relations with another man, especially when I told you I wouldn't let that happen? You know me better than that, babe." She didn't answer, but her blush told me a lot. She honestly thought I was going to give her a hall pass. "We made vows, babe," I whispered. "You ripped my heart out with your little arrangement." A couple of months later, I had the kids over for the weekend when Sarah gave birth to, well, technically Rebecca and Brandon's baby. I didn't ask about it, but the next time I had the kids, they told me everything. I pretended to be interested in their new cousin. A week later, I received what I thought was an unexpected phone call from Sarah. "No flowers, no phone call, not even a baby gift for your new niece," she said matter-of-factly when I picked up the phone. "I thought better of you." "You apparently think much better of me than I do," I replied. "I don't think I can claim to be an uncle to the child, given what's left of our marriage. And as for sending you flowers, you still don't get it. You can't break my heart and keep all my love. That's not how the game is played." The divorce was finalized a month later. Sarah got the kids, the house, child support, and some alimony since I made more than her. Apparently, she'd also made some friends through her version of events, because I noticed that very few of our friends kept in touch. I didn't notice it at first, but then little things started adding up, like many of the men barely acknowledging me when we met at kids' events. After several instances of being ignored, I finally got angry enough to ask one of these longtime friends if I had become radioactive or had a problem with my hygiene. "Oh man, You ruined everything with that baby story. How could you be such a selfish idiot? Daniel Walsh asked me when I got him talking one night at the Iron Cactus. So you and all the other guys think I had to become a fool just so that idiot Brandon could have a baby? I asked in disbelief. Fool? What are you talking about, Michael? Just let Sarah carry his baby if that's what she wants to do. All you have to do is support her, and you'll be a real hero. It has nothing to do with being a fool at all. Then she's not telling everyone the full story, I said with some irritation. How do you think she got pregnant? The three of them had intimate relations, even though I warned her I'd divorce her if she did. She just doesn't think she could do anything wrong. Damn, seriously? He exclaimed. Well, hell, looks like a lot of us owe you an apology. Within a few weeks, almost all of our former friends called me to apologize, and suddenly I had a social life again. But things really warmed up for me when the next Little League season started. Since I'd always been married before, I never paid attention to all the single moms watching their kids at games. But now that I was single, it seemed like 1 in 3 women at games wasn't wearing a wedding ring. I received a new phone number after every game. Sarah didn't show up for Tyler's first 5 games of the season, but she was in the stands for Game 6. I always coached from third base, and as I crossed the field to get back to our dugout at first base, she was sitting about halfway up in the stands, looking more than a little attractive in shorts that were probably a little too short and tight for this crowd. I tried my best not to stare, but I know she caught me looking at her great legs. In fact, it seemed like she'd been watching the way I looked at her throughout the game. I knew it was awkward, but I just couldn't help myself. She even winked at me a couple of times, and if I could have, I would have hit myself. We won the game 6-3, and Tyler hit a couple of good shots. Right after the game, I was talking to a couple of parents about heading to Amy's Ice Cream to get some cones for the kids to celebrate when I noticed Sarah heading towards me. I really didn't want to talk to her, but I didn't see a way to avoid it until Amanda Foster came to the rescue. Amanda was the mom of my right fielder, a skinny 10-year-old named Justin. Amanda had been divorced for several years after her husband cheated on her. She was a tall blonde with beautiful curves, probably the subject of many dreams among all the dads on the baseball field. We talked from time to time, but I didn't really know much about her. But as soon as Sarah approached me, Amanda appeared in front of me as if out of nowhere. Oh, hi. Amanda, how are you? I asked, trying not to drool. Justin looked good at the plate today, don't you think? Yeah, he wasn't bad, she replied. Do you have a moment so we can talk? I need to ask you a favor. Well, if you'll excuse me for a moment, I said to the parents I was talking to. How about we talk over here? I pointed to a place off to the side. It turned out that Amanda was a graphic designer for one of the marketing firms in the city, and they were soon going to have a summer event. She usually went there alone, she said, but since I was no longer married, she hoped that I would agree to go as her companion. Oh, hell yes, I said with a laugh. She smiled back, gave me a business card with her number on it, and leaned over to kiss me on the cheek. As she walked away, I saw her look at Sarah and make a small gesture with her head. I had no idea what that meant. I had a good time with Amanda at the event a few weeks later, and we met up from time to time. I also dated some other women who approached me at games or practices. Who would have thought there was such a thing as Little League parent social networks? I didn't even pay attention to what was going on around me because my marriage was so great. Luckily for me, I'd always kept myself in good physical shape and watched my weight, so at least it wasn't an issue for me. But after 13 years out of the dating game, the social aspect was difficult. Plus, I knew I was carrying a lot of baggage. I thought I had a perfect marriage with Sarah and was devastated to find out otherwise. At that moment, I wasn't sure if I could ever trust another woman with my heart again. My children were too young to talk about the real issues, and at that stage in their lives, I don't think they fully understood the significance of what was happening. Sarah spent a lot of time with Rebecca and Brandon and their child, and I think both of my children enjoyed the concept of a new baby. I, on the other hand, saw the child as the physical embodiment of Sarah's betrayal, and although the rational part of me knew that the child was not to blame, I still wanted nothing to do with the situation. The rest of Sarah's family thought the baby was golden, but I was still considered unreasonable. As expected, Sarah was back at it again, carrying a second child for Rebecca and Brandon. At least she had the decency to appear guilty the few times I saw her over those 9 months. Tyler and Emma told me she had another girl. I have to admit I smiled to myself in celebration. Sarah, the kids, Rebecca, Brandon, and their kids moved into a larger house in Westlake so that with my half of the proceeds from the sale of our house, I was at least able to move into a larger apartment downtown, which made it easier for me to deal with the children when they stayed with me. Even though we had children together, there were long periods of time when I didn't see Sarah, which was fine with me. The kids and I didn't talk too much about what they were doing in their other house, as I preferred to live in the moment and create my own memories with my kids. So I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised at Emma's dance recital a couple of years later when Sarah walked in looking like she was pregnant again. She never lost all the weight after her second pregnancy for Rebecca and Brandon. And in truth, she looked stocky, uncomfortable, and tired. She must have noticed the surprised look on my face because instead of staying away from me, I think she felt like she needed to explain herself to me. Remember when I said I wouldn't carry a baby for Rebecca and Brandon when I was 40? Well, apparently I lied. They persuaded me to try again to have a boy. "I'll be 41 when this baby is born," she said. "What you do for love?" I replied with a lot of sarcasm in my voice. 6 months later, Sarah gave birth to Rebecca and Brandon's third girl. I admit I poured myself a large glass of Jameson to celebrate that evening. Some things never change. About 6 months after that, I was sitting with some buddies sampling different whiskeys at the Iron Cactus on a Friday night when Rebecca walked into the bar with a couple of friends. We noticed each other, and I gave her a small wave, then continued talking to my friends as she walked to a table in the back. I didn't think much about it until about 90 minutes later when a clearly drunk Rebecca sat down in the empty chair to my right at the table where my friends and I were drinking. Judging by the fact that she smelled like she was wearing gin-based perfume, I figured she had at least drunk too many martinis. "Thank you so much for ruining my life, you damn Boy Scout," she said in a voice loud enough for half the bar to hear. "If you had just accepted the baby situation and not divorced my sister, Brandon and I wouldn't have gotten a divorce, and I wouldn't have ended up with 3 kids all by myself." "Whoa, hold on. What the hell are you talking about?" I asked defensively. "She was just going to get pregnant with his baby, that's all, and then carry the baby. But no, Mr. Perfect Fire Captain divorces her, and she ends up living with us full-time. Brandon spends time with her about half the time, and what can I say? Nothing, because she's carrying our babies. But tonight I come home from work, and they're together again in the bedroom, and he tells her he loves her more than he loves me. So now I'm alone with 3 kids running around and a husband who loves my sister more than me, his wife of 15 years. And all because you simply didn't let her have intimate relations with him for a week or 2. You're a selfish idiot." The bar got pretty quiet as Rebecca blurted out her story. I was pretty sure everyone was looking at the 2 of us. I motioned for Linda at the counter to give me another shot of Jameson and another martini for Rebecca. Linda brought us our drinks in record time and advised me to control Rebecca's outbursts or she would throw her out of the bar. Rebecca is 3 years younger than Sarah at 32. She would have compared well in looks and body to my ex-wife until Sarah aged and had 3 additional children. Rebecca leaned towards me, holding her drink, when she apparently decided that the rest of the bar patrons needed to hear more of the story, so she began to raise her voice again. But instead of letting her continue making a scene, I did something I hadn't planned. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. "Rebecca, stop," I said quietly. "This isn't helping anyone. You're making a scene, and you're going to regret this tomorrow." She looked at me with surprise, and I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. "You know what the worst part is?" she said, her voice breaking and getting quieter. I convinced myself that this was all about family and love and helping me have children. But really, I think I knew from the beginning that Brandon was attracted to Sarah. I think Sarah knew it too. And I let it happen because I was so desperate to have babies. She started crying then, and despite everything that had happened, I felt a wave of sympathy for her. Rebecca, I said gently, trying to keep my voice low so the whole bar wouldn't hear. I'm sorry things turned out this way, but what Sarah and Brandon did, that wasn't about love or family. That was about them wanting what they wanted and convincing everyone else it was noble. I know that now, she said, wiping her eyes with a cocktail napkin. God, Michael, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what we put you through. I'm sorry for breaking up your family. I'm sorry for being so stupid and selfish and desperate. I sat there for a moment, processing her apology. After all these years of anger and resentment, hearing her acknowledge what they had done was oddly cathartic. Rebecca, you were desperate to have children. I understand that desperation can make people do things they wouldn't normally do. But the way you all went about it was wrong, and it hurt a lot of people, including you apparently. I know, she said quietly, and now I'm paying for it. Brandon asked me for a divorce last month. Says he wants to marry Sarah and make it official. The kids are confused and hurt, and I'm a complete mess. My buddies had quietly moved to another table, giving us privacy to talk. Look, I said finally, I can't pretend that what happened doesn't still hurt, but sitting here watching you fall apart doesn't make me feel any better. You made a mistake, a big one, but you're not a fundamentally bad person. Rebecca looked at me with surprise. How can you say that after everything we did to you? Because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I learned that from my therapist. That got a small, sad smile out of her. You went to therapy? Hell yes, I went to therapy. You think a guy just bounces back from having his wife cheat on him with his brother-in-law in the name of love and family? I was a wreck for about 2 years. That got a genuine, if tearful, laugh out of her. I probably need therapy too. This whole situation has me questioning everything I thought I knew about love and family and what's right and wrong. Therapy helped me a lot. Helped me realize that I couldn't control what other people did, but I could control how I responded to it. Helped me let go of some of the anger so I could move forward. Have you moved forward? Are you happy now? I thought about that question. You know what? Yeah, I think I am. Dating has been interesting. I'm closer to my kids than I ever was when I was married to Sarah. My job is going well. I might make battalion chief next year. And I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. That's good. That's really good, Michael. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Rebecca. So do your kids. She nodded, still crying a little. Michael, I have a favor to ask, and I know I have no right to ask you for anything. What is it? I have this friend from work, Victoria Martinez. She's a veterinarian, runs her own clinic here in Austin. She lost her husband to cancer about 7 years ago. She's got a son who's in college now at UT. She's amazing, smart, funny, kind, and she's been asking about you. I looked at Rebecca suspiciously. Why would she be asking about me? Because I may have mentioned that my ex-brother-in-law was a fire captain who got screwed over by his family. I told her how you handled everything with class and dignity, even when we were all treating you like garbage. She said she'd like to meet you sometime. Rebecca, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not sure I'm ready for anything serious. And honestly, getting set up by you feels a little weird given our history. I understand that, but Michael, I owe you something. I can't undo what I did to your marriage, but maybe I can help you find something better. Victoria is everything Sarah pretended to be. She's genuinely kind. She puts others first, and she would never, ever do what Sarah did. I sat there considering this. The dating scene had been fun for a while, but I was getting tired of casual relationships with women who didn't really understand what I'd been through. What's she like? I asked, surprising myself. 43, but she looks younger. Mexican and Irish heritage, beautiful olive skin, dark brown hair. Her son is 19, studying engineering at UT. She's been through hell with her husband's illness and death, but she came out stronger. She volunteers at the Austin Animal Center, coaches girls soccer at Westlake High School, and she makes the best enchiladas I've ever tasted. And she really wants to meet me? She really does. I told her I'd ask if you'd be interested in having dinner sometime. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people getting to know each other. I thought about it. What did I have to lose? Okay, I said. Give her my number. Rebecca's face lit up. Really? Really? But Rebecca, this doesn't mean we're suddenly best friends or anything. I'm still dealing with a lot of anger about what happened. I understand, she said. But Michael, thank you for being better than I deserved tonight. Don't thank me yet. If this Victoria turns out to be crazy, I'm blaming you. That got a real laugh out of her. Deal. Linda came over then and gently suggested that maybe Rebecca should call someone to pick her up. Rebecca called one of her friends, and I waited with her until her ride arrived. Michael? She said as her friend's car pulled up. Yeah. I really am sorry. For everything. I know you are, Rebecca. Take care of yourself. 3 weeks later, I found myself sitting across from Victoria Martinez at Susie's South Restaurant on Barton Springs Road, wondering why I had been so nervous about this date. She was exactly as Rebecca had described, beautiful, intelligent, and incredibly easy to talk to. So you're the famous fire captain, she said with a smile that lit up her whole face. Famous for getting divorced, apparently, I replied. Famous for standing up for yourself when everyone else wanted you to be a doormat, she corrected. Rebecca told me the whole story. What your wife did was inexcusable. It's been a long few years, I admitted. I can imagine. Losing a spouse to betrayal has to be almost as hard as losing one to death. Maybe harder because you can't mourn cleanly. There's too much anger mixed in with the grief. I was struck by how well she understood it. You lost your husband to cancer? Lung cancer. It took 2 years from diagnosis to death. The hardest thing I've ever been through, but at least I knew he loved me right up until the end. You didn't have that certainty. We talked for 3 hours that night. She told me about her veterinary practice, how she'd built it from nothing after her husband's death. She talked about her son Carlos, who was a sophomore at UT studying engineering. She told me about her volunteer work at the Austin Animal Center and how coaching soccer helped her stay connected to the community. I told her about my job, how I'd worked my way up from firefighter to captain, and my hopes of making battalion chief. I talked about Tyler and Emma, how the divorce had actually made me a better father because I was more intentional about the time I spent with them. I even told her about my therapy, how it had helped me work through the anger and betrayal. Can I ask you something personal? She said as we were finishing dessert. Shoot, are you looking for something serious? Or are you just dating around? I appreciated the directness. Honestly, I thought I was just dating around. But sitting here with you, I'm not so sure anymore. She smiled. I like honest answers. What about you? I've been casually dating for about a year, but I'm ready for something real if the right person comes along. I'm 43, Michael. I don't have time for games or casual flings. If I'm going to invest in someone, I want it to be worth it. That's refreshing. Most of the women I've been dating lately seem to be either looking for a good time or a father figure for their kids, neither of which you're interested in being. I've had my share of good times, and I'm already a father to my own kids. What I'm looking for is a partner. Someone who can stand on her own, but chooses to build something with me. That's exactly what I'm looking for too. 6 months later, I knew Victoria was the right person. She was everything Rebecca had said and more. She was patient with my emotional baggage, understanding about my complicated relationship with my ex-wife, and wonderful with Tyler and Emma when I finally introduced them. Her son Carlos was a great kid who reminded me of myself at that age. Focused, ambitious, but still grounded. He was respectful but not intimidated by me, and he clearly adored his mother. And Victoria's approach to parenting was everything I admired. Firm but loving, clear about expectations but flexible when circumstances called for it. Victoria also understood the demands of my job in a way that Sarah never had. When I got called out for emergencies, she didn't complain or make me feel guilty. When I came home exhausted and covered in smoke, she helped me decompress instead of lecturing me about tracking dirt into the house. She had her own career, her own interests, her own life. She didn't need me to complete her. She wanted me to complement her. It was a completely different dynamic than I'd had with Sarah, who had always seemed to expect me to be responsible for her happiness. A year and a half after our first date, I proposed to Victoria during a family camping trip to Garner State Park. Tyler, Emma, and Carlos all helped me plan it, which felt right. This wasn't just about Victoria and me, it was about all of us becoming a family. When she said yes, I felt like my life was finally complete again, but in a different way than before. With Sarah, I'd felt complete because I thought she filled in my missing pieces. With Victoria, I felt complete because I was whole on my own, and she was whole on her own, and together we were building something even better. We had a small ceremony 8 months later at the historic Elizabeth Ney Museum in Austin. My parents flew in from Dallas, and Victoria's family came up from San Antonio. Tyler walked Emma down the aisle as my best man and maid of honor, which made everyone cry. Carlos gave his mother away, and the pride on his face was unmistakable. Rebecca came to the wedding, which surprised me. She was doing much better after her divorce was finalized and she'd started therapy. She'd also started dating someone new, a teacher at her school who seemed to genuinely care about her and her kids. She hugged me before the ceremony and whispered, "Thank you for giving me a chance to do something right. Thank you for introducing me to Victoria," I replied. "Are we even now?" she asked with a small smile. "Let's call it a good start," I said. Victoria and I built a life together that was everything my marriage to Sarah should have been. We supported each other's careers without competing. We shared household responsibilities without keeping score. We made all major decisions together, and when we disagreed, we talked through it until we found a solution that worked for both of us. Victoria and I had that. Sarah and I never did, even when I thought we did. Sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best discovery, discovering who you really are. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.